All right, performance nutrition guide. Austin Treadwell, physical therapist, human performance coach. I'm talking about supplements that support erections. So, nice little lecture here. I feel like go over a lot of good, interesting thoughts and really break down the most popular, well-known supplements to fuel a healthy erection. So we've got learning objectives. Our theme here is support the system. We're going to support the system, not shortcut it. Nutrition and supplementation enhance the foundations you've already built. This is maybe going to read a little funny because it's the last presentation I made for the course I'm rolling out about improving erectile health naturally without the gimmicks, without the red pill stuff, without the go to your doctor, get this crazy prescription, even though not necessarily crazy. I think most guys would rather approach it in a more natural, holistic way. So that's the idea. So the goal is give men a clear, evidence-based understanding of which supplements and dietary additions meaningfully improve erectile function and help men understand which supplements have the strongest evidence for improving erectile function. So going over those key supplements, I mean, we see a lot online. We hear about a lot. We'll see the commercials on TV. Some are more proven than others, and we'll talk about those that are the most proven. So we've got 8 goals today. We've got learn the mechanism behind nitric oxide production, endothelial support, and libido enhancement. Very important. We're going to differentiate tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supplements based on human clinical trials. These tiers are just based off which ones have the most research behind them, which are the most scientifically backed. And a lot of that too is if the study hasn't been done yet, probably just not going to be in one of the tiers. You know what I mean? I feel like there's so many that are coming out, being rolled out, and have maybe anecdotal evidence, but not a ton of literature behind them just yet. So I think maybe that's one of those things that we'll see develop over time. But these tiers are created by me and completely arbitrary outside of that. You know what I mean? Tier 1 for me might be a tier 2 for someone else, and vice versa. Third goal is recognize when certain supplements only help if you are deficient. So we've got zinc, vitamin D, folate. I wouldn't even say that's necessarily the case, but it's so interesting with like our lifestyles now. We'll get into this later. Our lifestyles now are increasingly sedentary, increasingly indoors. So we're not really getting the vitamin D naturally as much as we used to. We're not having the most fulfilling diets anymore, so we're not getting the folate we should get. We're not getting the zinc we should get. So maybe we are deficient in a certain sense, but not usually in a sense that it's detrimental to our general health. But we will see with a lot of these that if you take the zinc, you take the folate, the folic acid, you will see the benefits. You will see the improved erection or male performance. Fourth goal is to learn how to build a simple, safe, intentional supplemental stack. A lot of these are relatively mundane. We'll talk about some amino acids. We'll talk about some herbs, herbal things, vitamin D, where you'd have to take a ton to see any adverse effects. So it's beneficial to take multiple of them at the same time if you really want to see those benefits, those natural benefits. So we're going to learn how to build a simple, safe, and intentional supplemental stack. We're not going to overdo it. We're not going to be crazy with it, but we're going to be smart. We're going to be evidence-based. Fifth goal is to understand how nutrition, specifically nitrates, polyphenols, and omega-3s, support the same biological pathways. We're going to talk about number 6, knowing when to modify or discontinue a supplement based on results. So usually I would say maybe 8 to 12 weeks is when you start to reassess. If you haven't seen any results in 8 weeks, call it. If you have tried it and it's not really been that 2-month mark yet, maybe keep going, maybe adjust the dosage a little bit. We'll get into that a little bit as well. But yeah, I do think that 8-week mark is a magic number as far as seeing change. So we'll talk about that some more. 7 being to integrate supplements into a long-term performance lifestyle rather than relying on them as shortcuts. Exactly that. It's interesting to think about, like, we'll have our moments where we don't have the best performance as males in the bedroom and we want an immediate quick fix. But you know what's better than a quick fix is a lifestyle that appropriately keeps you in that performance level that you want to be. So as opposed to taking one thing one day and then having a good night. Make your life reflect something that would benefit you long term in the bedroom, right? Number eight, understanding why certain supplements work, how to use them safely, and how to integrate them into a long term performance lifestyle. And that's really the main objective of this PowerPoint, this presentation. So we'll get into that as well. So without further ado, we'll jump into it. First thing is this little quote. I believe this is by me, actually. Supplements don't replace the system, they enhance it. That's common sense. I say this is a quote by me. This may be something I've said once before. I it holds true. It's so important that we realize that supplements are not the end all be all. I think just a healthy diet is much more impactful than any supplement. The idea is that we build the foundation first, then fuel it. So you do want your diet to be the end all be all, if at all possible. But we're not ever really, with our modern diets, hitting every mark. So beneficial to supplement. 6 questions that you should be able to answer after watching this presentation. Number one, which supplements actually improve erections and which ones are hype? In total fairness, we're not talking about anything here that's fully hype, purely hype. So um, beyond that, we'll have a discussion. It's interesting. Even the ones that maybe we're not going to discuss here, anecdotally, you'll hear a lot of good things. And anecdotally from me, I've seen good things. So um, play it by ear. This is just where I've seen the most research, the most evidence for supplements. Second question to answer: how do I know which supplements fit my specific physiology or limitation? We'll talk about that a little bit in detail. Uh, one way is testing through labs. Another way is sort of trial and error with some of these more mundane supplements you'd use, vitamin D, some of the herbal stuff you'll take maybe lightly and just see what you feel like. But yeah, just starting slowly and building in. That's the main idea right there. But yeah, the most proven, the most for sure, surefire way to see what fits you the best, go to a lab, get tested, see where your deficiencies are. Third question to answer: are supplements enough on their own, or do I need supportive nutrition? We already alluded to it a little bit. Um, there's not going to be any supplement that's good on its own, sufficient on its own. We miss the mark a little bit with our modern diets. If we're just getting specific supplements, we're definitely missing the mark. If I just take vitamin D capsules all day or vitamin D gummies all day, I'm not getting near enough. I'm not getting the carbs, the fats, the proteins that I need to support a healthy life. So of course not. Of course, supplements are not enough on their own. We need a lifestyle, a holistic approach. How do I know if low zinc, vitamin D, or folate is part of my issue? Partially trial and error. I think we're not all able to go to the lab and get tested and see what our deficiencies are. I would say take one zinc supplement, take one serving of a zinc supplement, take one serving of a vitamin D supplement, take one serving of a folate supplement, a couple of weeks, same dosage. I'll bet you see some improvements. So one of those things, these were generally missing the mark on, to be totally fair. Number five, which supplements can I safely combine and which combinations make no sense? We'll talk about that a little bit. I'd say realistically, there's not too many that are unsafe. We'll talk about where you might see some danger, so to speak, but I would say generally speaking, they're generally safe. The combinations make no sense. We'll get into that as well. But it's hard to say what makes sense for me compared to you. So we'll get into the minutia a little bit. Number six, how long will it take before I notice improvements? And we sort of alluded to already that 8 to 12 week mark is usually what I would recommend as far as being consistent, being steady. So without further ado, we'll hop into our supplements. The first one we got is L-arginine. We've got L-arginine's tier 1 strongest evidence study. So L-arginine is a amino acid, so naturally occurring. Your body makes this to a certain extent, and very rarely will you see adverse effects. The adverse effects are the adverse effects you see for a lot of things, like if you take too much in one sitting, you might have a little upset stomach, you might have a little diarrhea type situation, you might be in the bathroom for a while. But I would say this is one of the best. This is the best and most proven. The mechanism is that it is a precursor to nitric oxide, which improves endothelial dilation and penile inflow. So that's the main thing. L-arginine, and we'll talk about L-citrulline, the precursor to L-arginine, in a little bit. The most proven, the main idea with stronger erections is to improve nitric oxide production. As a general idea, I think for young guys, a lot of it's mental, a lot of it's psychological. But the major idea is that you increase the nitric oxide production, and that will in turn improve penile blood flow. The quick evidence summary: multiple randomized clinical trials and meta-analyses have shown that it increases your erectile scores in the IEF, which is the major outcome measure of erectile function, especially in mild to moderate vasculogenic ED. So mild, moderate vasculogenic ED, vasculogenic being that it's a vascular issue. Your vessels in the penis are not quite doing what they're supposed to do, not pumping out as great as they should be. And mild to moderate vasculogenic ED, L-arginine, been extremely proven through multiple studies and meta-analyses and randomized clinical trials. Easily the best supported when combined with your PDI or PDE5 inhibitors, so your Cialis, your Viagra, or antioxidants. It's one of those that even by itself is very strong, but if you're like, I need everything I can get, this is one of those you should get, to be totally fair. So 5 stars, most consistent and abundant human evidence for L-arginine. This is the absolute most proven. So you got a really cool study here, relatively recent, looking at L-arginine versus placebo for men with moderate vasculogenic erectile dysfunction. 2 groups, about 98 guys, split evenly, and the results were that the guys who were taking the L-arginine had significantly improved erectile scores. So very cool, and in conclusion, the guys thought that L-arginine is a very good alternative to the PDE5 inhibitors, especially for those guys who have those adverse effects. We've got Panax ginseng, red ginseng, Asian ginseng. Tier 1, another one that you hear a lot of anecdotal stuff for, and then you try and you're like, oh, I see. You know what I mean? It's very interesting in that Eastern medicine type world. Well, we'll hear things are an aphrodisiac. This is really one of them for sure. We've got research that suggests that it enhances nitric oxide production, enhances endothelial function, relaxes the smooth muscle. So all things that are very, very important to producing an erection, right? Proven. We've got meta-analyses that have shown significant improvement in erectile function versus placebo. And that's the main thing. It's not just a mental thing. If we compare it to a placebo or to nothing at all, where you think you might be getting that treatment, and you are actually seeing improvements in comparison, good indication that it works. Systematic reviews also support benefit through study quality. Oh, those study quality varies for sure. That's maybe the main idea. It's one of those things. If you see it researched a lot, not every study is going to be of great quality, but we've got some quality stuff for sure. Not as proven as L-arginine, and again, L-arginine is naturally occurring. Your body uses L-arginine, but yeah, still a great addition. I think these little herbal remedies are always great. Look at some of the research on that. Another really cool study, randomized clinical trial, looked at Korean red ginseng. 2 groups, one group got placebo, one group got the Korean red ginseng. 3 times a day, 1,000 milligrams each time, and then that was for 12 weeks. And the results were that the guys who were taking the Korean red ginseng saw significant improvements in erectile function by the International Index of Erectile Function. So very cool. About what we'd expect, to be totally fair. Like, we always thought of these like compounds, these plant-based compounds, as aphrodisiacs. This is definitely one of those main ones that we've always thought about as an aphrodisiac. But yeah, very cool. After 12 weeks, I saw significant improvements in erectile quality in those guys who were taking the Korean red ginseng for the 12 weeks. So very cool. A lot of benefits to this one for sure. Antioxidant blends. We've also got that as tier one. Antioxidants are naturally occurring, reduce the free radicals in your body, reduces the stress, improves endothelial health, reduces oxidative stress, enhances nitric oxide bioavailability. That's the main factor. We'll talk about erections and how we get better, stronger erections, more consistent erections. The main player is nitric oxide and reducing the inhibition of nitric oxide production. So with the psychological, the psychogenic ED, you'll see maybe the nitric oxide production is happening because you're in a sympathetic state. If you're not necessarily heart healthy, you won't really see nitric oxide production that others are seeing. So that's the main idea, is that we want to improve nitric oxide production, and that's the major mechanism for erection, for producing erections. Evidence summary, meta-analysis of 23 double-blind RCTs shows a 5.5 improvement on the IIEF erectile function versus placebo. So I don't know how it could be any more proven than that. 23 double-blind randomized clinical trials show a 5.5 improvement, and I generally think that the 8.6 point improvement is significant, right? So if we see a 6 point improvement, an 8 point improvement, that's huge. We're about at that door. We're knocking on the door there. So antioxidants by themselves have been shown to improve erection significantly. 4.5 stars here. That exact terminology, antioxidant blends, it varies so much. I'd be interested to see exactly what the antioxidants are. So here's a cool meta-analysis that looked at those antioxidant blends we were talking about. I mentioned I'm always curious about what blends they say are in there, what antioxidants are in there. This one's interesting because they highlight a few things that I wouldn't necessarily think of as antioxidants. They've got arginine, of course. They've got folic acid, green tea. They've got a few amino acids, some things we've talked about. We're going to talk about in this PowerPoint or this presentation. So very general, very all inclusive. But yeah, I mean, if blends are going to include those things, of course, it's going to be beneficial to erections. So, of course, the findings were that across the analysis of all these antioxidant blends, that yeah, they were proven to improve erectile quality. So, interesting for sure. L-citrulline, very, very important, converts to L-arginine, precursor, improves nitric oxide production more steadily than arginine, because generally speaking, when you take an arginine supplement, your body's going to process a lot of it, and maybe not all of it will lead to erectile quality, more blood flow. L-citrulline, everything you take in is going to be converted to L-arginine, and the idea there is the arginine will allow the nitric oxide production. I generally take citrulline. I think they're about the same, to be totally fair. I feel like I've seen anecdotally better results with citrulline, to be totally fair. But yeah, I'd say citrulline or arginine are great additions daily, to be totally fair. I don't think you'll see as good benefit with any of these other supplements that you'll see with these amino acids, to be totally fair. Evidence summary, RCTs show improved erection hardness, especially in combination with other antioxidants. Antioxidants are always beneficial. I think that's the main thing. If you are eating your blueberries, your healthy greens, all your good fruits and vegetables, you're probably good, to be totally fair. I know that's where a lot of us sort of miss the mark. I know I'm not a big veggie boy. I know guys I talk to aren't huge on veggies. That is usually one of the bigger players. believe it or not. We talk about Mediterranean diet, fish, oils, and heavy on the greens and the fruits and veggies. For sure. I mean, proven. It's very proven. If we're talking, where's the evidence? It's in those antioxidants pretty consistently. So hard to downplay, but as far as additional avenues of supplementation, the L-citrulline is such a great addition, as well as L-arginine. Here's a cool study where they had 24 guys checking to see if citrulline was any benefit. So 24 guys, 1 month with placebo, 1 month with the citrulline orally, 1.5 grams per day. And as you'd imagine, the guys who took the citrulline for the month were seeing benefits. Similar to a PD5 inhibitor, not quite that same level, but beneficial nonetheless. So one of those things, again, worth a try because you don't get those crazy adverse effects for sure. Good but smaller trials, so a 4 of strength here, but I think that's one of those that's really good. Pycnogenol, tier 2. This is one that I think is relatively interesting as well. Pycnogenol, I'm relatively new to the party here, only recently becoming familiar with it. Still growing research for sure. Arginine, of course, by itself is very proven, very anecdotally beneficial. Of course, precursor to nitric oxide production. Pycnogenol is got a ton of antioxidant properties. So it's very interesting in that regard. Very potent antioxidant substance from European pine tree, been proven for heart health, reducing oxidative stress, of course. You'll read about a ton of benefits for pycnogenol. Relatively new. I'm still exploring the literature on it a little bit. But yeah, one that you'll hear a lot about sort of lately. Evidence summary, combination has shown significant improvements in erectile outcomes across multiple clinical trials. Sure. Same thing though, arginine by itself has shown that arginine is so proven, it's so universally stamped. You could throw anything up here, I feel like. You could say blueberries, arginine and blueberries, great benefit. But the study hasn't been done, right? So very interesting. That the idea is that it's been shown better than arginine alone, and a well-supported synergy for sure. So here's another cool study looking at pycnogenol by itself. So just to make that separation a little bit, this one looks specifically at patients who had that ED but also had diabetes. So I believe it was 32 patients with diabetes mellitus type 2 and then also patients without. And it showed that both groups actually had those improvements. So it's really interesting. Both groups had improvements in rectal quality, rectal function. And interesting to think about, the guys with the diabetes actually had greater improvements in rectal quality. So maybe that speaks to the mechanism of pycnogenol and those polyphenols that just any type of cardiovascular metabolic type pathology, maybe you'll see greater benefits, greater improvements if you're taking that pycnogenol or any of those strong antioxidants, those polyphenols. So very interesting for sure. Saffron, Crocus sativus, tier 2 evidence, tier 2 supplement. Again, sort of arbitrary, but just based off the amount of research I've seen, amount of evidence I've seen, literature. It's interesting with these herbal things. Of course, saffron is a spice. You can get it at Walmart and cook your food with it. You know what I mean? Very interesting in what they do. They all have different properties. It's interesting with the plant-based, plant medicine type approach to life. But it's one of those things with plant medicine. They've been doing it for years. You know what I mean? It's always funny to think about the Eastern. You talk about Eastern medicine, and you'll see movies where they've got this herb, they'll crush it down, set it on fire. I mean, that's what they did, and I mean, now we've got evidence to support some of this stuff. So saffron, we see the antioxidant properties. We see the dopaminergic modulation, which is really huge for just being in the mood. Smooth muscle effects as well, which is great for allowing ease of erection and increasing flow. So I think that's hard to beat. I've not really experimented with this one at all, but I think it's very worthwhile. Probably make a saffron tea, You could cook with it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that's very easily added to your life. So I think that's really interesting. Every summer, we've got systematic reviews, we've got meta-analyses that show improvements in sexual dysfunction scores, including erectile dysfunction. 3.5 strength, promising, but smaller studies. We'll look at some of these briefly. To the point, here's a really cool study about saffron. Interesting, like I said, in that Eastern medicine world, but I think definitely beneficial as we're seeing. 20 guys, they took 200 milligrams of saffron once a day for 10 days. Saw really great benefits. They saw improvements in the erectile quality, more rigidity, and we'll look at it in a second on their IEF scores. There's like a 15-point increase overall, which is insane. So definitely a significant improvement in those erectile function scores, which is really cool. Mechanism still being researched for sure. Of course, antidepressant effects, antioxidant effects. But yeah, really cool. In conclusion, beneficial and definitely worth adding to a stack. It's very, very useful and helpful, as the few studies that are about it will show. So really cool. Definitely one worth looking at. We've got folate or folic acid, tier 2 evidence. We've got here best for high homocysteine. Homocysteine is another amino acid, but it's interesting. It's a big indicator of poor cardiovascular health. So maybe you're low on your B vitamins, increased risk for blood clots, increased risk for cardiovascular diseases. So folic acid has been shown to help reduce homocysteine levels, and that is really big. Interestingly enough, most people are actually, I think, deficient in folic acid. So this is one where we talk about deficiencies. I believe in the U.S., it's required that they add folic acid or folate to a lot of our foods, so we get our dietary marks right. We're not eating the leafy greens, we're not eating the beans and all this stuff very often. You know what I mean? Not anymore. So one of those things that's very beneficial and proven to be very beneficial. Um, you can get a bowl of cereal, I think, and you probably look at the nutrition facts and it'll say folic acid. So one of those that's very interesting uh, and beneficial in a lot of ways, very proven as well. Mechanism is that it improves endothelial nitric oxide production and lowers homocysteine. So again, helps improve that cardiac health. Healthy heart, healthy dick, to be totally fair. So um, definitely want to be good on your folic acid. And again, this one that realistically comes with just a good diet. But if you know you're missing a little bit, wouldn't hurt. Wouldn't hurt to throw that in there. Evidence summary: folate deficiency correlates with erectile dysfunction. That's proven, right? And that's another reason why I think it's beneficial that we hit this heavy. Any deficiency we want to hit immediately. And I think you'll see a lot of benefits. Like we'll talk stress, we'll talk sleep deprivation, we'll talk you're not getting enough sunlight, so you don't have any vitamin D. I think lifestyle changes would be hugely beneficial for a lot of our rectal problems. But this is one that we are likely missing and we should not be missing, right? Supplementation improves function in high homocysteine men. Sure. 3-star strength, more of a deficiency thing. So, I mean, we're not going to say specifically it's an erection specific thing, but I think if you're not getting your deficiencies met, of course you're not quite there. I would say that you can't have a healthy erection with some of these deficiencies, but less likely than if someone who is meeting their marks a little bit and is on the same level as you, relatively speaking. So we'll look at some of this research as well. So here's a really cool study, systematic review and meta-analysis. Uh, we're going to look at two studies really quickly, but firstly, just the mechanism, right? There is a very clear link through a number of studies associating folic acid or folate deficiency with erectile dysfunction. Of course, that deficiency will present as reduced nitric oxide production and reduced endothelial health. So very beneficial to have the appropriate folate levels, folic acid levels. Now, this study looks at folic acid levels, folate levels, the benefits of supplementation on improving that endothelial health and improving that blood flow. So, systematic review and meta analysis, very in depth, again, very detailed, a lot of good studies that they've looked over. And maybe we don't have the exact research or exact study that shows a link between supplementation and improved rectal performance or rectal quality, but we do have these studies that show that very much improved endothelial health generally, and the mechanism is there with much higher doses than most people would recommend. We've got 5 milligrams daily, according to the study, to see the benefits. I was with a bottle of folic acid right now, and it says about 1 milligram per serving. So very interesting to think about for sure. Maca. Maca is interesting because it's one of those that you hear a lot about online. Herbal remedies always get a lot of love, I feel like. Very interesting though. Tier three, there's not a ton of evidence that's overwhelmingly supporting it. Doesn't really give any nitric oxide changes, but maybe some results for mood effects, increased libido, increased desire. So maybe that's why I've tried Maca and I've not really seen any significant benefits. But I'm also a relatively young guy, and I don't think I've ever not had a desire. You know what I mean? I feel like that's never been my issue. You know what I mean? I've always I feel like maybe wanted, but sometimes they're just not quite, perking up. You know what I mean? So maca is beneficial in that regard, where it is shown some libido enhancement benefits and maybe mood effects. But yeah, not necessarily the nitric oxide exchange. So want to be beneficial for a stack, right? Where you've got your nitric oxide boosters, you've got your um, you've got your antioxidants to reduce those free radicals floating around, improve that heart health, and then you throw in some, libido boosters, right? Beneficial as a stack. But yeah, much more benefit for increasing libido than increasing erection. So here's about the level of quality you'd expect for a maca study. Not very bad. They had 50 guys, 12 weeks of using maca. Interesting enough, both the maca group and the placebo group saw benefits, but the maca group saw slightly more benefits. Definitely could benefit from a stronger study, but again, worthwhile just to see that stuff repeatedly, at least a small benefit, right? So I guess that's cool for sure. Vitamin D, it's like another hormone. I feel like if you're not getting this, you're failing in a lot of directions, failing in a lot of ways, not necessarily just in your erectile health. Definitely want to be supporting your vitamin D, hormone support, mood support, endothelial function, testosterone production. I mean, a million benefits for vitamin D, and we are uniquely deficient. We're all uniquely deficient. I say we all are. I think there's a study that shows that X amount of people are deficient. We'll look at that as well. But yeah, very rarely are we getting our recommended vitamin D because we're always indoors nowadays. So pros and cons to that lifestyle change. But vitamin D is one you should for sure be getting. Evidence summary observational links between low vitamin D and erectile dysfunction. There's observational links between low vitamin D and a million other things as well. But like I said, vitamin D and testosterone are linked pretty closely as well. RCT support is inconsistent, benefits likely only when correcting deficiency. That's the main thing, right? We're all uniquely deficient. We're all missing the mark at some level. I feel like I wouldn't say that. Maybe the people who are outdoors all day, every day, and getting their recommendations in the sunlight. But for most of us, I think it's beneficial to be taking some sort of vitamin D supplement. But to strength, it corrects deficiencies, but it's not ED supplement per se. It's not one that's going to necessarily be it end all be all for your rectal quality. You're not seeking this out purely for erections. You're seeking this out more so for general well being. Zinc's interesting because recently online there's been a big push for zinc. It's sort of interesting. I don't know if you're deficient. This is one that is potentially unsafe if you do too much. So we talk about a ton of these. Zinc is one of those that if you take too much zinc, you will know. You're gonna throw it up. Your body's gonna be like, "What's going on?" You're gonna have a headache. You're gonna have a stomach ache. you're going to be shooting out from both ends potentially. Don't overdo this one, but I will say, depending on the supplement, you might be able to take a little bit more than it recommends, to be totally fair. So I think talk with your doctor about this. Do the research on this one for sure. But yeah, I think most supplements you can get from, say, Walmart, Walgreens, they're going to have a recommendation that's a lot lower than what you could safely take, to be totally fair. Don't take that to heart, though. Take that with a grain of salt. Definitely talk to your ND about specific dosages there. But very, very beneficial. This is one of those that's interesting. Anecdotally, when I was donating sperm and I really, really wanted to make sure I shot a huge load, zinc was the one I'd take. I'd take a couple of zincs, and no question, I was gonna sit down and be rock hard, and I was going to shoot a ton. So huge testosterone booster. That's the main thing I think. If you go to Walmart, Walgreens, GNX, you get a testosterone booster. Very likely, I say GNX, GNC. You're very likely to um, see zinc in that testosterone booster. Very proven. Influence testosterone production and sperm health. Huge. Evidence summary: human erectile dysfunction data is inconsistent. For that specifically, of course, strongest benefits seen in deficient men or special populations, and also it's not necessarily an ED supplement. Testosterone and sperm production are its most proven benefits. So for that reason, 2 strength restores deficiency, and it's not a standalone ED solution. But yeah, one that's worth a try, definitely. One that is very much worth a look. And again, we're likely deficient. So I always say, probably wouldn't even be talking about if it wasn't one of those you're not likely deficient in. So yeah, I'd say give this a try for sure. Always start low though. This is one, like I said, if you take too much, you'll know, and you're going to regret it. And that's from anecdotal evidence as well, to be totally fair. But if you look at this, I mean, look at the research as well. This is one that has a very straight danger zone. So don't overdo it. Coenzyme Q10, tier 3, one of those that's, again, sort of a general health uh, supplement. Your body naturally produces it. You produce less as you get older. So one of those things, as you get older, you also see less erectile quality, right? So one of those that's very beneficial in a lot of ways. So antioxidant properties, very important for mitochondrial health, improves endothelial energy status. So yeah, one of those, mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, very important for energy production. Coenzyme Q10, huge antioxidant properties, protects the mitochondria, reduces free radical stress, oxidizing stress. Very, very, very important supplement in the sense that as you get older, you see much less of it naturally occurring. Evidence summary: benefits in Pyrenees. So if you've got any abnormality of shape in your penis, maybe you'd be benefiting from using coenzyme Q10. Endothelial conditions. So again, we talk about free radicals. Talk about antioxidants and how they reduce free radicals, how they improve endothelial conditions, allowing that smooth blood flow, allowing the vessels to be free and clean and empty, and for blood to flow very fluidly and efficiently. That's the idea with a lot of this stuff, right? Strength 1.5, again, not an ED specific supplement, but very useful as an adjunct. How to build a safe, evidence based supplement stack. So we'll quickly talk about what is the approach. We sort of alluded to it. We said you want your nitric oxide boosters, you want your antioxidants, could be from your diet, to be totally fair. You want to meet deficiencies. You don't want to be deficient in zinc. You don't want to be deficient in vitamin D, especially. Don't want to be deficient in folic acid, which we all are to a certain extent. I feel like because our diets are so poor. Um, so addressing deficiencies is a very big part of that. So we'll quickly talk about what we've got here. Start with a clear purpose. The best way to start with a clear purpose is if you get labs done. And I know we're not all going to do that. If you do the research, you don't need to. Be totally fair. If you do the research, you're being safe and you're being evidence based in your approach. You probably don't need to go get labs. What are they going to say? You've got deficiencies in these areas that we commonly see deficiencies in. Okay, well, let me go get something. You know what I mean? So you can be able to solve that with trial and error. Totally fair, as long as you're doing it safely. Choose supplements that support exercise system. So nitric oxide production, of course, endothelial health. So we're talking about antioxidants, coenzyme, Q10, any antioxidant blend, all of the things we mentioned here. Libido. So now we're talking maca and things of that nature. Zinc to a certain extent. Efficiency correction. So make sure we're getting our vitamin D, zinc, folic acid. So if you feel like you've only got an issue in one of these places, right? You feel like you've got everything, but you just don't have the blood flow. And you're just going to take your arginine. You feel like you've got everything, but you don't have the endothelial health. And you're just going to start eating a lot of veggies and fruits, right? Libido, you know what? Maybe you'll try maca out. Maybe you'll try zinc and increase testosterone. Efficiency correction, of course, vitamin D, folic acid, very big, very proven as well. Use only clinically supported compounds. And that one's sort of funny sometimes because the science will only back what has been researched, right? What does that mean? It might be a new thing that is not very well researched that is super beneficial, anecdotally, right? And I'd always say what works best is what works for you, right? Is that fair to say? If you try something and anecdotally you see a ton of benefit, I'm going to say keep doing it. You know what I mean? So um, use only clinically supported compounds. Sure, some are very proven. Arginine, bucnogenol, pan-ginseng, antioxidants, citrulline, very proven. But also, I understand if you divest a little bit and you say, well, Tongkat Ali, I feel like it's better for me. Or what's another one? Shilajit has been shown to help me a lot. And so be it. Do it. Do what works. Always do what works. I mean, that's sort of the major advice I could give is always do what works. So that's more of a mental aspect, more of a mental thing. If mentally you say this works, you should be taking it. Correct deficiencies first. I can't stress that enough. Odds are, if you're a young guy, young, healthy guy, you're deficient somewhere. Maybe it's not even one of these. Maybe you're sleep deprived. Maybe you're not getting enough sunlight, so vitamin D, right? So take your vitamin D supplement, take your zinc, take your folate. When you're low on these will probably be the game breakers. These are the ones that'll shoot you up for sure. Herbals are secondary for sure. Um, Ginseng, saffron, maca, useful adjuncts, not foundations. Realistically, you could never have either of these in your entire life and be totally fine. That's sort of common sense, right? If you have the blood flow, you're meeting your needs as far as no deficiencies, you won't ever have to touch ginseng, saffron, and maca, even though they all are very proven. Pair supplements with supportive nutrition. So, of course, you're going to want to supplement, but the main thing is that your diet reflects a healthy person's diet, and your diet reflects that you want a healthy, strong erection, right? So, nitrates or beets or dark leafy greens, polyphenols, omega 3s, fruits and veggies boost the same pathways, right? If you're eating healthy and you're hitting all these marks, you're probably totally fine. To be totally fair. So, your diet is the first and foremost goal, right? You want to address that first. Reassess regularly. Um, I say every 8 weeks, you want to take a good look and say, you know what, the start of this 8 weeks to here, I feel like this has been beneficial, this has not been beneficial. That's the main idea, right? So you should see some change in 8 weeks if you've changed something and been consistent with it. So if you start taking a daily vitamin D and it's been 8 weeks, you probably feel a lot better. And that's really if you just go outside. But say you're taking a daily citrulline or daily zinc, right? If you're hitting your daily recommendation, 8 weeks later, you'll know. You know what I mean? So reassess. And if in 8 weeks you don't see any change, make another change. So one of those where 8 weeks is where you should see something has developed. That's usually the number. 6 to 12 weeks is the number where they say, you know what, that was enough. You should have seen something by now. But 8 weeks is where I usually say be safe. Go 8 weeks. Diet, endothelial health, and erections. Diet, like I said, end all be all, right? If you have the best diet in the world, you're probably good, but nobody's diet is that good. We're all missing the mark a little bit. So, recommendation is to supplement to some extent. Diets rich in fruits, veggies, whole grains, legumes, healthy fats have been shown to improve endothelial function and antioxidant production. That's like the pyramid. You know what's funny? That's very, very proven. I think it's getting a lot of pushback. I would say do what fits you, do what works for you, do what fits your lifestyle. That's the major key, right? If you're super sedentary, your recommendations might be a little different. But fruits and veggies for sure, ton of whole grains, specifically whole grains, beneficial. You do want those healthy carbs. Carbs are your energy source. Of course, you want whole grains. Legumes, you got a lot of healthy fats. Healthy fats are in legumes as well. Have been shown to improve endothelial function and actually, yeah, all this is beneficial for sure and worth adding into your diet. Should it be the end all be all? How much protein are you getting? You know what I mean? Those are the things that I'm sort of worried about, especially if you're a male. Beets and dark leafy greens are high in nitrates, which convert to nitric oxide. Huge. People say, "Oh, I take beet powder. I drink beet juice." Good. You know what I mean? Like proven, very proven, because the mechanism is there, right? Dark leafy greens, again, mechanism is there. Watermelon has citrulline in it. Huge. Mechanism is there. Long-term Mediterranean diet in people with type 2 diabetes is slow decline in erectile function paired with a low-fat diet over 8 years. Sure, you do want your healthy fats. You need your healthy fats. Mediterranean diet gets a ton of push, just push very heavily. Very, very heart healthy diet, and a healthy heart is a healthy penis. So very worthwhile in that regard. I agree for sure. But as when we talk diet, we also talk lifestyle. So it's interesting. Does your diet fit your lifestyle? Right? Is maybe a major player, the major question consideration. Antioxidant rich foods, berries, dark leafy greens, very important. Omega threes, fish and nuts, very important. They support blood flow and reduce oxidative stress, and that is a major player in erectile function. Major health player, like I said, healthy heart, healthy penis. So keep that in mind for sure. Keep all that in mind. Finish with the same thought we started with. Supplements don't replace the system, they enhance it. Foundation first and foremost, then fuel. So healthy diet, eat deficiencies, then you add the other stuff, right? So start with diet, then deficiencies, D3, zinc, folic acid. Then I would say nitric oxide boosters. Then I would say herbals. But yeah, really good stuff though. I think this is all really worthwhile information. I think a lot of guys have these questions and they wonder how can I get this part of my life better? And it's embarrassing and you don't want to talk about it. Here's your answer, right? So good stuff here. Feel free to reach out with any questions. LDPT, we'll break it down. All right, boys, that's it for that one. Austin Treadwell, DPT, male performance coach, physical therapist, doctor of physical therapy. All proven. Everything I'm going to say is very proven. So we've got a course coming soon on our website, treadwelldpt.com, to help you in that regard. I do realize how tight we get about these conversations about erectile quality, sexual performance, male performance. It's so important to us. It's so important to all of us. Our dicks are important. It's normal to say, I care about my dick. That's maybe the major thought. Just getting more comfortable, confident, calm when we have those conversations. I think a big part of it is mindset, especially for younger guys. So I've got the course on my website, joeldbt.com. Hopefully I'll see you there. Plenty of insights to add, all evidence-based strategies, a lot of great things to add to the conversation. And we'll have the weekly conversations as well to really get into these things and try to build the helmet. I think most of it now is psychogenic, younger guys, especially. The psychological aspect is why we're not quite getting there. But that could be a number of factors, right? So we'll talk about all the details. So hopefully I will see you in the course. And otherwise, you can reach out to me. I'm likely to reply, to be totally fair. So that being said, hope you enjoyed it. Treadwell DBT. Catch you next time.